existing condition here on the top on the left-hand side on your sheet, you will see that those sizes, although aren't exact, tend to be pretty close. So that really is a nice representation of what's out there today. You don't see the arch here represented, but that is certainly something that we would have as part of the package. So we'd also do a relief, a form liner for an arch, the keystone. I'll call it the keystone portion of the arch. So we would mimic that also. So you would see those stones much again like you see out there today. And then to go along with that is when we'd ask for them to do these samples, we did some research and found out most likely 80 years ago when they would have taken the stone for the bridge, rather than very deep quarries and really hard stone quarries that we will see today that get used in most building materials. These tended to be the stones that were more towards the surface, had less overall pressure on them, and so therefore their PSI value was much less, and hence we're seeing, unfortunately, the downside of that. Our bridge is deteriorated and is literally having pieces fall off of it. So to get a good representation of what those colors might be, we again historically looked at some of those surface conditions of what the material would be today if we were to go out in the field and look at what those surfaces are, and then again trying to match what's out there today, and it sort of works from right to left to you. What you see out there historically might have more of those tans and some of what they would call a buff limestone, and then if you'll see on the left there tends to be more of the gray, which would match closer to what we all have out there today. So I just want to make sure everyone's clear that the three options we have here, I think we would like to have input on, but from what we can tell, having gone out there to do some measuring,
Now, of course, since you've got a choice there, you've got your three choices, A, B, and C, and just to share with you the one that I tend to like the best, I like the one in the middle the best. But again, it's one of those things that, you know, let's see what the various commissions say. They're going to be ultimately the ones making that recommendation to the council. And I think it is important that certainly thinking about it from the perspective of the retaining the character of the existing bridge, if indeed it's going to be replaced, because just down the way, a little south from there, of course, it's my understanding that there's a similar type of bridge in the St. Paul, on the St. Paul side. And I think at this point, I had read an article, I think, in the Pioneer Press, where it said that St. Paul had decided to keep that bridge. I don't think that it's used for vehicles, but that they had decided to keep that bridge for historical purposes, and so of course, if it is indeed kind of built at the same time and the two of them are similar, it would be good to have the two of them, since it is all part of a holistic vision for that area, that they be similar and retain similar character. So anyway, let's continue on then, and we have just only about 20 minutes left of the program.
The small ashlar is very close to what we have out there. Are there any questions on those particular three or the color?
What material is that?
Actually, this material here, this would be a representation of what the form liner would be. This is actually concrete, and without going into a lot of details, the method in which they do this is a very interesting method, but they'll oftentimes, what they'll do is they'll make a mock-up in almost more of a fiberglass, very easy to present and bring to meetings. And I asked if they could give us a true representation in concrete, although heavier to move around, give you guys a better idea of what that would look like. So the textures that you see would be virtually the same, provided the contractor doing the work is doing their job, absolutely. So this was made in a shop, in an environment that, again, in a shop versus in the field. They would use the same form liner, and it would appear to be the same thing.
It's not the same material then for countertops? So I thought I heard you say Corrigan, or?
No.
Well, that's
no.
what I thought I heard you say. Okay.
No.
No problem.
Yeah, this is a regular, they literally would take this membrane that would be, the negative of this. And you can imagine when they're pouring their concrete for the bridge itself, instead of having, oftentimes they'll just have a form that might be plywood or something along those lines, or even steel. Instead of having that, they'd have that, but backing with this, they would have this form liner. And so once all the concrete is poured and vibrated into place, then once everything's cured or at least dried, they'd strip the forms, and then they would literally look through and see where they may have some imperfections and come back through with a slurry base and put that, fill holes, knock off places where they might have had overspill or what have you. So they really, there's certainly an art to it. And then I'm not sure at what point in time, it depends upon the weather and the heat and what have you, once things have cured up enough to paint, and they'd come back through and paint this. And again, another art form, but certainly the specifications that we would write would include and be seeking firms that have experience in doing this.
In other words, it's not put on like stucco?
It is
mesh
not,
behind it with
no,
that board?
No, absolutely
okay.
not.
All right.
It's all integral, and that's the benefit, the longevity of it. The particular company that we're currently working with right now to help us with this is a preferred contractor for the National Park Service, and they do work literally all over the country in a lot of national.
So I think that this helps to answer a lot of questions and concerns that some people had with regard to exactly, what is the construction of this, because if you're reconstructing a new bridge that's concrete, if indeed you're just putting a surface veneer over it to make it, look similar to the old bridge that was there, that may not hold up as well, simply because it's just some type of a veneer. But as you heard, it isn't that at all, and that actually it is an integral part of the actual concrete that when the bridge is created itself at that time, and then they come back, and then that's when they make the changes in the coloration that you saw in the sample mock-up there, is that then they go and then that's when they add the color afterwards, after it is cured properly. And of course it all depends on the temperature of the summertime or whenever they're doing it, or the weather conditions, obviously. So as you heard, it is not a veneer type of process at all, which is a good thing. So anyway, so let's continue on.
So they've been doing it for a long time and know what they're doing, and we would hope that they would be able to help us with this project. So if there are no further questions, I want to make sure, even at the end, if you come up with questions regarding the color of the process, feel free to just jump right in. The last sheet that we have here talks about the rest stop, and we were instructed to try to come up with a place. Here we have this nice trail along here, and the idea of actually providing a place for those that are either walking, biking, inline skating, whatever folks are using the trail system. We wanted to provide a place for them, some respite for them, but we also looked at this as being a great opportunity to tell the history of the bridge itself, and even taking a step further, but actually using materials that would have been salvaged from the bridge. So finding the best stone that on the bridge now, and then instructing the contractor to salvage that, set aside, protect, and then in some shape or form create a not only a historical plaque that would talk about the history of the bridge and the method possibly of how they built the bridge, but actually have some true stone there that people could touch, look, and feel. We looked at two different options, one of them being this concept A that would be associated with this rest stop or this respite, and we are showing this, call it an oblique, if you will. We are not necessarily sold on what that shape is. It's more about having that material there and letting people, again, walk up next to it, feel it, touch it. And probably equally important would be to have this plaque to go with it that would talk about the history of the bridge. And then we would have an integrated landscape that folks could, again, stop and rest and have it be an aesthetically pleasing place. We felt, let me talk about Concept B. Concept B maybe takes it a step further than rather than having something that's just material, this would actually be representative of what the arch would have looked like. And we would literally take a portion of that arch and replicate it as well as we can so people could understand what that was like. And again,
now keep in mind, it sounds like they're talking about that this rest area would be underneath the bridge, where, remember that picture that we saw earlier where you could see that there was the path where people were walking under the one arch of the bridge, and that the other arch is where the water was. So it sounds like this rest area would be down at that lower level under the bridge someplace. Now keep in mind, those of you who go in that area and drive in that area frequently or are familiar with that area, you also know that Ramsey County, of course, has a park spot not too far from there, and I try to remember, it might even be called maybe Round Lake Park. I'm not really quite sure, but anyway, but there is like a park area not too far from there that does have restrooms. It has a parking area, picnic tables, and so the question is that could indeed the rest area somehow or other, while it's at a different level, could it be, could this idea of having a interpretive spot to talk about the bridge, if indeed they want to have an interpretive spot, why couldn't they just simply put that at the Ramsey County park site that they already currently have just a few yards away from there, and that maybe if you need a spot to rest at the lower level, simply put in a couple of picnic tables or something to that effect, rather than creating a whole new big rest area when you really, maybe you can look at a use of the resources that are there. Also considering the budgetary constraints that we have in our budget right now. So it's a few ideas for thought. So let's continue on, and what I'm going to do is that we're just going to let out the rest of the program, run with the rest of the film footage from this meeting so that you can continue to hear what happened at the meeting. Now, if you would like to hear more of the discussion on this meeting, or you would like to watch the meeting in its entirety, there's two ways that you can do that. One is that you can either contact the City of Maplewood and ask them for a copy of the meeting on a DVD. It'll cost you $5. Or you could go to the Maplewood City website, and I believe that they do have this available on demand so that you can actually click on the link and then you can watch the meeting on your computer. So if you have a fast internet connection, that might be the way you'd like to go. On the other hand, if you don't have that available to you, you can get a copy of the DVD from City Hall for $5. And the phone number for City Hall is 651-249-2000. And so with that, I want to thank you for tuning in to this episode of On the Agenda in Review. And come back again next week where we'll be covering something new, something different. So thank you once again for tuning in, and please continue watching the rest of the program and the film footage that we have.
Talking about the historical methods of how they would have constructed this 80 years ago versus the way bridges would typically get constructed today. And whether it's, we're showing something here that might be 10 feet tall. I don't know that it would be that tall. It might be less than that. From a structural standpoint, we certainly would have to look into that. But just so everybody understands that this would be a representation of one of the arches on the bridge that's out there today. And then if you can imagine that arch spanning all the way across, we would have a remnant then, if you're looking at Concept B, the remnant piece on the right-hand side, that would also Thank you.